And welcome to the Daily Space Weather. I'm your host Dan, aka smAsho. We're going to be talking about sunspots. Whether or not they're there, are there sunspots? We'll have to look. Geomagnetic storm subsides for a temporary moment. We're expecting it to go back up again for a moment. And a high earthquake risk. Let's start things out by looking at the sun here in 94 angstroms, one of the ionized states of iron, at least its UV emission spectra. The photons coming out of the ionized iron, yes. Two active regions mainly there. And possible sunspots in the process of forming as we make the video. Here's a colorized magnetogram, and again, we may see some umbrae starting to form in both of those areas. And by the way, if you have two big sunspots, if we actually had a big sunspot, now of course these are not sunspots, but if they were sunspots and large ones, if you had one down here and down here, you'd have a much higher increased chance. An increased chance, not a higher increased chance, just an increased chance of things like solar flares. Let's look at some custom HelioViewer movies here. Here's a close-up of that region, and allow me to vanish. And grab my coffee. Next, here's the northern region, including the North Polar region, along with an Earth scale and a good view of that active area there, that plage. And we call it a plage because it looks like a sandy beach. So when astronomers got good telescopes and got good filters and got good views of these active regions, they noticed that they looked like depressions, high pressure zones in the sun's chromosphere. So they called them plages, as they resemble a sandy beach. And here's the 171 angstroms view of that. Good times. And allow me to reappear. And get on with some additional stuff, as there's lots of stuff to cover. And it looks like, the machinery is going to turn on at the smash bunker. All right. Oh, we're having technical difficulties. All right, no worries, folks. The operation's not going to cease to exist. It's not going to grind to a halt. Man, oh man. I think I may have to get some bearings greased. All right, anyway. Yeah. Coming at you from the Smash News Network. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux is at 74. And there's the approximately 3-year graph of that. Having not seen numbers, smooth monthly values above, well, I'll say monthly values above 80 for over 3 years. And for you new viewers, the radial flux is a good proxy for sunspot number. So if you look at only the end of the last cycle, you'll see a very similar graph there. I'm not exactly zoomed in the same. This is a huge graph. And you can see the proportionality of the sunspot number to the radial flux. And like I said in the title, the KP index has dropped back down to 3 here, so we've come out of geomagnetic unrest conditions globally. Don't be surprised to see this kick back up, as this has been an irregular solar wind velocity throughout this coronal hole wind stream, probably having to do with the magnetic environment. I won't get super in-depth into it in this explanation. And there's the X-ray flux over the past 3 days. No significant solar flares over that period, and no significant proton strikes. Just a high-speed coronal hole wind stream, which is, by the way, protons, but it's not what you'd consider a spike, as this is looking at density. And you can see the real-time solar wind. It's actually, overall, it's ramped up over the past 10 hours a little bit here. Current solar wind speed right around 600 kilometers a second. And you see the way the graph expanded here, because yesterday we covered such low levels of solar wind density. Current density around 7 protons per cubic centimeter. And we still do see like a fleeting coronal hole magnetism here. You can see that BTBZ is bouncing back and forth at the same time as the phi angle. And this does represent an earthquake risk increase. It's an increase in earthquake risk, folks, and it's because there's lots of protons. When you have high velocity, you've got fast-moving protons, but you've got fast-moving protons at this density still equals lots of protons. So if you're in an earthquake-prone zone, please have a plan. Now here's the aurora forecast. And we did see some significant auroras kick off in the past couple of days. You can see Iceland and southern Greenland, as well as eastern Greenland. Getting significant aurora there. And there you can see it subsiding at the end as the geomagnetism ramps down a little bit. Next, looking at the geospace magnetosphere movies. We're going to show you all 3 panes today, because we see this low velocity zone, this sort of acceleration zone around the Earth's magnetosphere, looking a little more normal now here in the past 4 hours. And you can see some striations of the velocity coming in from the left. Next, looking at the density. Let me bring that back. It's not a particularly high density solar wind, it's the velocity that's driving the geomagnetism from that massive coronal hole, which is in front of that active region there, and indeed connected to the north solar polar coronal hole. The one that's there all the time in some capacity, as far as we know. And there's the 4 hours of density data, and here is the pressure. Keep in mind, folks, this is a model based on the space weather modeling framework, and it takes a lot of different things into consideration here. We have a very high electron flux right now as well. And you can see the multiple layers likely forming there, especially on the meridional plane side. If you look at this view, you can see those extra double layers forming there, which is what we would expect with the increased pressure. I'll let it play through a second time for you there. This is the pane we show on most daily space weather videos. If you want to see what this was doing around this time of day, on a different day, view our playlist on YouTube. You'll be able to find it in the daily space weather video segments. We've created a bunch of different playlists, and look for that to be expanding soon, as there are a lot more different types of videos we plan to make on YouTube, including things like interviews with people. Yes. Now we're going to look at the geoelectric field before we look at the ground magnetic perturbations. And this is induction in the U.S. power grid, measured in millivolts. Millivolts per kilometer. And you can see some significant induction here. This is covering only the past 4 hours, it looks like. Three hours. And this is what happens when you get geomagnetic storms and unrest. Fortunately, the U.S. power grid is quite fortified. with electronics to reroute and shut down service promptly before things start on fire and transformers explode. So here are the ground magnetic perturbations. And thank goodness for some increases in technology, as it makes a huge difference. And after we review this, we'll check the chat. Please leave us a comment, even if you're viewing Memorex. But if you're viewing live, certainly leave us a comment here at the Smash News Network. We are streaming live to Twitch, if you're wondering, folks. It's twitch.tv/SmashoMash. It's the current live streaming choice of the Smash News Network, in that it's such a great platform. Their mobile app is pretty good too, by the way. Twitch.tv/SmashoMash. And here's the very spiky, saw-toothed gauge magnetometer that I basically drew in yesterday what it would look like. And yeah, it was a pretty accurate forecast. And am I surprised? Not really. If you watch one of our older videos, you'll find that it's pretty tough to find me incorrect, especially if you consider all of the content and how many correct forecasts have been made. Next, looking at this Gong 2 data. You gotta love the Gong 2 data. It's the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And we still haven't snapped into the South Pole current sheet, which is actually something you could find me incorrectly forecasting yesterday. Yes, we do not appear to be yet in the South Pole current sheet, but it's very, very close. As you can see this on the last frame here, you can see the Earth's potential field force line shown here in orange, about to make its way into the South Pole current sheet. And we'll actually see continued low readings there, so it's not going to show anything real crazy on the gauge magnetometer. This will remain around this range, and it may already be snapping back and forth at this point. It's very difficult to tell with magnetism. Magnetism's pretty weird, and it can suddenly change with no warning. Now this data is about 2 hours old here. Here's a line of sight field plot, which shows the B field looking pretty stable here. Nothing too exciting happening with the B field, shown in blue, which is really the product of the two poloidal fields, shown in green and red. Lastly, here's the coronal magnetic field plot. And this gets very jumbled up depending on where the plasma is located, where the sunspots are located, etc. Coronal hole sunspots and excessive plasma are all different things that affect what this field plot would do. And for you new viewers, the closed potential field force lines are shown in pink. Coronal hole potential field force lines are shown in purple, and closed potential field force lines are shown in black. I'm sorry, open potential field force lines are shown in black. Is that what I said? Anyway. And welcome to another Smash Lights, where we talk about anything. By the way, if you enjoy the content, please press like and subscribe on YouTube. We apologize for any technical difficulties, but the video cannot continue until you press like and subscribe. Now, I've tried to burn up COVID by having a fire ignited behind me here. You can see our fireplace, which actually just sets the room on fire. And I also have the sun there. See, I've got the sun right there, and the coronavirus. And it's a pretty weird wig when you think of it. Is my forehead made in China? The answer is not yes. My forehead was not made in China. And oh, by the way, thanks again for tuning into another Smash Lights segment. Let's get rid of that and that. Have you pressed like and subscribe on YouTube yet? We're waiting patiently. Now, one thing I'd like to talk about here real quick is how the U.S. power grid has been fortified. So let me just do a search here. It's to a Forbes article, yes. Now, I'm not a fan of Forbes, especially with some misinformation that Forbes has put out in light of the COVID nonsense. But in any case, let's show you a blurb. U.S. government makes surprise move to secure power grid from cyber attacks. Now, this one's by Katie O'Flaherty. And she writes about cybersecurity. So this is one of the many things that's been done to fortify the U.S. power grid. Now, of course, Forbes is trying to convince you to invest in U.S. equities, which is fine. It's whatever. If you understand the reasoning behind it, it's not a big deal. But the point is that the grid where you're located may be in much better shape than you may think. So, for instance, where I'm located, and a lot of spots around this area, you would be surprised at how well the grid would survive even an electromagnetic pulse. So now especially things like emergency communications are almost entirely fortified against this sort of stuff. But, while everybody was concerned with other things last July, the U.S. makes a surprise move to secure the power grid from cyber attacks. Now, this is not a thing that you're going to hear on a lot of YouTube channels, because, of course, the market on YouTube is to feed you a bunch of nonsense. And I guess that's why our videos get demonetized typically. Now, yesterday's video was a Smash Lights segment embedded in the regular space weather video. And even though the Smash Lights segment was a segment from the daily space weather video, it got demonetized because reasons. So in any case, maybe because it was titled Smash Light Trump Derangement Syndrome COVID-19, even less deadly than thought, I guess that was a little bit too controversial. By the way, if you like things that are a little bit too controversial, check out bitshoot.com/smashamash. We put exclusive content and look for it to happen more and more often, especially up until the date of November 4th. And I'll bet you can guess why. Can't you? I won't even mention it. Now, we do typically stream live to Twitch to do the daily space weather videos once again because the platform is so good and because it's poignant information. Check us out over there if you want to see the content before ever having to go to Google's junkware servers at YouTube. Twitch.tv/smAsho, a platform with good functionality. And I don't know what the censorship is like, but is there censorship? All right, let's talk COVID. It's cheap at Chinese. I'll tell you what's also cheap at Chinese. Fear-mongering. Yes. There's a lot of people on the internet right now telling you, oh no, the world is ending. The food supply has vanished. Everyone is going to die. It's going to be a zombie apocalypse tomorrow. Have you noticed a bit of this? Now, I noticed that we've attracted a certain type of audience to our channel. And there seems to be a movement, a fear-mongering, cherry-picking, nonsensical movement. And that's fine. You can put up a bunch of nonsense constantly. And you can cherry-pick data. And you can attempt to frighten people in order to sell products to them. That's fine. But you probably shouldn't science deny. Just saying. Anyway, cherry-picking, if you weren't aware, is the suppressing of evidence, the fallacy of incomplete evidence, etc. When you only cover stories that cover your whatever you believe about certain things. Have you noticed a little bit of cherry-picking, propaganda, and fear-mongering in not only the mainstream media, but also the alternative media? Yes, places like YouTube are full of kooks who don't know jack beep about what they're talking about, but they're going to tell you all about it anyway. People that don't understand the physics are going to tell you about spaceships. People that don't understand the whatever science. I mean, the level of credibility on YouTube is, have you noticed that it's vanished? All right, there are some credible channels on YouTube. But, geez, let's talk about COVID. What was I saying about it on April 29th? Well, there's a whole forum thread about it. It's smashomash.com/forum. If you go to the free-for-all forum, there's a 31-page section about COVID-19, since it's so scary and spooky, I decided to make a whole thread and, update the thread every day from January 23rd up until mid-July. Turns out Al Gore, science denier, believed that COVID is related to the climate crisis. Oh yeah, COVID must be related to the climate crisis. To quote Al Gore, well, as someone has said, we're in a kind of chrysalis. We are continuing to navigate according to the coordinates of a world that has radically changed. And it's a challenge to ascertain what the world to come is going to look like. Will it look like a zombie apocalypse? No doubt there will be many similarities, like me having a carbon footprint of 50 normal people. But as you know, you mentioned the oil bailout proposal. Anyway, Al Gore, geez, this is too long of a quote to read. Geez, it's making me tired just thinking about it. I don't know how he links COVID. He says, if we, just to pick one example that existed before this began, the death rate for African American children from asthma is 10 times the death rate for Caucasian children from asthma. You can see the big increase in death rates from COVID-19. And there are many factors that cause it. Many factors that cause it, says Al Gore. Many factors can be purchased at smAshomash.com/affiliate. We've dipped our tippy toe into the Amazon affiliate space. I say affiliate on purpose. I know it's affiliate. I say affiliate. To use the verb form, yes. Here's a verb form I don't use. Google. I stopped using Google as a search engine, by the way, in 2012, and have been offended by people using it as a verb ever since. For God's sake, stop using Google as a verb and visit our Amazon affiliate links. Perhaps get yourself a bio bug-out bag or a waterproof 64 gigabyte metal keychain USB data hard drive. It's a hard drive. What about some shark socks? Or how about some calcium plus vitamin D? It's the featured item today. It's the supplement. Calcium plus vitamin D. Vitamin D, one of the things that, by the way, almost nobody dies of COVID when they have vitamin D sufficiency. Take calcium with it to prevent your bones from having sediment leached out of them. Sediment, not sediment. Minerals leached out of them, yes. Thanks to our patrons, a true source of funding for the content. Please consider becoming a patron if you haven't done so. It's patreon.com/smAshomash. Look for various changes happening by the end of the year this year. There will be multiple changes. There are 9 tiers over there. Patreon.com/smAshomash. This true source of funding for the content. And welcome to another cosmology segment. Check out this extreme galaxy. It's Boss EUVLG1. They thought it was a quasar. It turns out it's just a very bright galaxy. It stands out due to its blue color. It seems that there's a very low amount of stuff in between us and it. It seems to have a very low metallicity also. And in astronomy, we consider everything more massive than helium a metal. If you want to read about Boss UVLG1, check out SciTech Daily. It looked like a quasar until it was better resolved. It turns out it's just a bunch of blue, massive stars, kind of like Deneb. Pretty cool. And it's a very short cosmology segment today. I wanted to also turn you on to smAshomash.com/forum, as there is a cosmology forum there. Go read about Cygnus X3 perhaps, or the MOST, or Q objects, or perhaps fast radio bursts. Thanks for everybody who contributed over there. Thanks for your contribution, rather. And thanks Smash staff for helping us delete thousands of Chinese spam posts. Yes, there was something that was also, yeah, just like that, COVID. It was also made in China. And somebody was trying to sell fake degrees on our website. We got hack fraud scammed by Chinese bots who put up thousands and thousands of topic threads many of which we had to delete manually. Shout out to smAsho staff. Thanks once again, Smash staff, for all your hard work. Now, one of the things that we're doing here is we've got a contest that's going to happen in October, where we allow our viewers to perhaps even design some clothing designs. So that could be a thing. Designs such as our Mansa shirt. Since it's up to you, please make America not suck again. Now, this is a nonpartisan shirt. And of course, we've got other nonpartisan shirts too. We've got Mansa, we've got Mensa, if you'd like to make Earth not suck again. Tell your friends and your foes, maybe get one in gold. Since it's up to you to make Earth not suck again. Anyway, you can link to all of this stuff at smashamash.org. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Smashlights, where I may rage, or I may vanish. Let's get back to space data. Relativistic electrons are currently at very high levels, and we're moving into an electron storm once again. We've got charging hazards, significant ones, mainly in the northern hemisphere, over the northern South Atlantic region, northern South America, and places like Cuba, and also some charging hazards there in the southern hemisphere. The forecast is for an even higher level of electron flux. If you're around the equator at noon, expect your GPS to have major errors, and we already are in the error in the warning regions here. We're above warning thresholds already by about 2 or 3 times, and we did reach a level much higher than that. Our patrons probably already knew. Again, consider becoming a Patreon. A Patreon patron. The true source of funding for the content is patreon.com/smashomash. And here's the total electron content forecast, and you can see pretty thick layers of electron there. They are fairly organized. Some slight anomalies there traveling around Antarctica, as well as in the north, but pretty minor anomalies. Everything looking pretty normal, really. Next, here's one slice of the atmosphere, just the ionosphere layer. Looking pretty normal as well. Bringing up the latest image. There's the image of the ionosphere from 7:30 Universal Time. Looking quite normal. I like to use in-the-sky.org to know where stars are. Do you know where Mars is? So we've got the moon and Mars. If you're up before dawn, you should see some stuff like that. I think it's a little bit later than that. It's currently 3:42, and Venus has just risen, the third brightest object in the sky. Where will you be when Deneb sets? Here's where stuff is in the solar system. There's where it'll be in a week. Will you be weekly wasting your time in court because your local county doesn't even know how to simply collect a fine in a competent fashion? Yeah, that's where I'll be tomorrow. I'll be berating somebody before a judge. Yes, I'll be suggesting that somebody get audited for his pathetic, ridiculous behavior. Let's look at earthquakes. We don't see very many big ones. Scrolling up the list, we saw one by the Azores, someplace I'd like to go on vacation. I actually considered going there back in 2008. I almost went to the Azores, but I went to Germany and Austria instead. Oh, there's a deep quake in Indonesia. It's at a 4.7 magnitude at Indonesia, at 100 kilometers. So basically we see a lull in earthquakes here, folks. I would say if you're in an earthquake-prone zone, have a plan. Let me draw in the map. If you're in these areas, and if you're in that Cascadia region, you know what I'm talking about. Please attempt to be an asset, not a liability, in the event of a disaster. What the heck happened? Yeah, please attempt to be an asset, not a liability, in the event of a disaster. If you're in those regions. We are having an earthquake drought. And if you're not aware, earthquake droughts end in, anybody? Bueller? They end in large earthquakes. We see a bit of a volcanic downtick too, which we often see as large earthquakes kick off. Are they related? Probably. Anyway, on volcanostoday.com, we're seeing Suwanosejima still erupting, flight level 060. Sangay exploding, flight level 220. And Sabancaya exploding, flight level 250. 25,000 foot ash plume there. Don't pole vault the caldera. Here's weather.gov's map, and we still see some freeze warnings in the southern Rockies and some frost advisories in the central plains. Now, yesterday our thumbnail featured some dust, and we're showing you some dust once again. Are you dusted? Don't be dusted, folks. By the way, that dust is what makes the Caribbean so fertile. Let's get to what we usually look at. It's 25 hectopascal winds, which show us the jet stream, which is all over the place. Look at all of this region here. Looks like the Bermuda Triangle of jet streams, folks. And we've got this major bend here. There's some massively cold air being injected very far south, all the way to Mexico. You can see it clearly there. Expect some cold temperatures in those areas. Next, looking at the eastern world's jet streams. There you go. There's that. Once again, right here, we have some extreme meridional jet stream flow straight north to south, making for some cold days in the Himalayas. And also, we've got jet stream blowing the wrong way, all the way from the western Pacific to the western Indian Ocean. And indeed, planes will avoid that if flying across those areas. Next, looking at water vapor maps for Europe and Africa. Shout out to our viewers from there. Please tell your friends and foes about the Smash News Network. And we may cover your stories, so leave us a comment. If you've got something interesting that you'd like for us to talk about, we will consider it. There are water vapor maps for the Far East and Oceania. And here's a water vapor map for the Americas. Some turbulent weather over northern South America there. Check it out. And you can see this cold air injection here. And that's going to move its way across. It'll eventually get to us, most likely, unless that bend suddenly changes. And it looks like it's going to remain intact. And eventually, it's going to make it very chilly in Pennsylvania. Next, looking at windy.com's pressure maps. And I don't know why the hell it defaults to wherever. It defaults to like Popocatépetl for some reason. It's stupid. I like the mobile version better. But here's the pressure forecast. We'll let it advance into tomorrow. And that's the GFS forecast. High pressure ridge remains over the North Atlantic. And there's where we expect things to be at noon tomorrow. Powerful anticyclone here off the coast of Argentina. That is a big-time high-pressure system. And anticyclones in the southern hemisphere, they rotate counterclockwise, folks. We saw a big bout of lightning happen as I did show prep here. Check it out. Major lightning here over the southwestern Gulf. Dag. If you're shrimping with Forrest Gump right now, you may want to get below decks. And here's the U.S. Doppler radar map. And here's me vanishing. powerful low pressure system here north of Lake Huron. It's creating a ruckus in southern Canada there. And there's the cloud layer. I'm over it. Here's the U.S. water vapor map. And let's take a look at this region of mixing here. You may see lenticular clouds in those areas if you're in places like southern New Mexico, northern Texas, and northeastern Arizona. Those places should all see interesting cloud formations as you've got this massive pressure gradient here. This pressure is much lower than it is here. And this region here will feature turbulence, oddities, and it'll be featured all over YouTube where people will tell you that those weird clouds are a signal that the apocalypse is upon us. And hey, Smash team, thanks for tuning in to the Smash News Network. Don't be going nowhere, because we got bonus features. Also, check out our merch. Maybe get yourself a Smash shirt. Today's featured merch is the All Things Matter red hoodie. There you go. That is today's featured shirt. You can link to all of that from smashomash.org. Thanks for flying, American Smashways. Please keep your head and arms inside the Smash plane at all times, because we've got bonus features. We're going to show you the 335 angstroms view of the local yellow dwarf, the intensity gram to look for sunspots, as well as the colorized magnetogram for the same reason. And there's that colorized magnetogram. Let's zoom in on this area down here and see what colors we see, as those look like they may be ombre, folks, so that could get named a sunspot. Appears to be a little sunspot-like, and indeed there may be some ombre here too. So if those two areas show dark umbral cores at the same time, that would be a significant uptick in solar activity. And there we go, we see ombre there. That's a beta class sunspot right now. Definitely two different polarities. And this one might even be considered an alpha class sunspot as well. So that's something to keep an eye on today. And when I say eye on, well, the pun is intentional. As we're looking at ions, here they are in 335 angstroms. Anyway, we're out. We'll see you with more content soon. Thanks again for tuning in. May that solar wind be at your back and that covidiously absent from your universe.